Good morning, everyone. It's Hanifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the ego. I had kind of planted a seed yesterday in the video, which talked about hope and how hope was about an expectation for the future, but not living in the present. Today, I'm going to talk about ego, which is a memory of the past. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, scriptural text, it talks about the ego being the shadow of the past, which is so interesting that I had to contemplate it this morning. And I have to tell you that I came across some great quotations that I'd like to share with you. The first one is by Mike Maples Jr., and it says, "Ego is about who's right, truth is about what's right." And I think this is a very straightforward way to think of things. If we think about the ego as, and we can think about this in children very easily, right? So imagine a little fight or scuffle happens at the playground, and teacher comes by, and one child will say, well, I did this because they did that. So I pushed them because they pushed me, right? So there's a reason, and there is who is more right is an ego space. And usually it's around that age, at childhood, that ego is starting to develop. And we'll see this in a lot of different times in people's lives too, right? So you can see it in gangs, right? So they told me to do this, so I did it. So this can lead to criminal behavior, of course. And it is usually involving blame and shame. That person told me, that person did this, I was only copying, whatever it is based on ego, and it's about who's right. Well, they shouldn't have just left that there or I wouldn't have taken it, right? So that sort of idea, it's all about ego. And what's right? So not pushing another child is right. Not taking something that's not yours is right. And we know this consciously, right? So in this thought, we can remember that the ego likes to get attached to different aspects that we associate with the human experience, right? So if the ego attaches to the body, there's sensual pleasures that we can get attached to, right? So if I love the taste of chocolate, and I might even say, well, if I didn't get so many gifts of chocolate this Christmas, I wouldn't have eaten so much chocolate. And that's ego speaking, right? Because I can control how much chocolate I eat, even if I've been given many gifts of it, right? But oftentimes, and it's Christmas time, so I know that a lot of people will go through this sort of process over various things that we might ingest, and recognizing that I'm giving myself this out and taking that responsibility I am giving. It's one thing to actually say that today I'm going to have this, tomorrow I'm not, and that's some discipline, right? And it's another thing to say, well, it's because this, right? So a friend visits, and there's some sensual pleasures that are happening. So maybe that hug is just a little bit more intimate than what would come from a friendship, right? And you know that your spouse is very, we'll say, jealous, but maybe rightfully so, maybe based on his or her own past memories, right, of something that has happened. And that awareness for yourself guides your own conscience as to how tight you hold that person that you're hugging at the door, right? That sort of idea. We can also look at this again back into the gangs, right? That, oh, you know what? I really wanted to take that thing from that store and it was just sitting there, so I took it. So that egoic, I want this, we're associating with our physical satisfaction, right? So if we're looking at sensual pleasures, like even if we look at greed, it is a sensual pleasure, right? That's something that I get or acquire for myself. But of course, we can do this from things of sight, right? So I've seen this computer that I really want. I've seen this game that I really want. I'm just thinking about kids. Maybe they want a video game or a computer game that they really want to get. They want something. Adults do this too, right? So that's something that they've seen that they want. It could be something that you smelled. Maybe you can see this happens in department stores, right? Why do you think that there's always those samples that people will get from perfume counters, or little spritzes that you're smelling in the air, and suddenly it's like, oh, I really like that, and suddenly I want that. Sometimes it's with an outfit that you might see. I mean, I love clothes, and I'm sure if I see something or even jewelry, it's, oh, I kind of like that. And now that I've seen it, I kind of want to have that. And I can hold myself back. I am aware that that is an egoic tendency, right? And it takes a conscious awareness to do this. And then we can also think about sensual pleasures for ourselves, right? That we can meet with friends with a different intention than the intention of meeting with friends, right? So I'll let you take that wherever you might take it. And again, of course, we know that this is what leads to things like affairs, right? So this conscious awareness that is always present in our minds, there is this awareness that there, if we are associating ourselves with our bodily needs, our physical, sensual needs, we can pull into egoic tendencies. Another aspect is we can associate with the mind, right? So with the mind, this feels good. So I'm just having this food because it's a comfort food and I'm not having a very good day. And just today, okay, maybe tomorrow too. Okay, so I had it for this week, right? So we will give ourselves those outs, recognizing it just makes me feel better when I have this, right? So that's an out. And then there's also an intellect, right? That, oh, you know what? When I eat this food, it doesn't feel so good. And yet, it just feels good when I'm having it. It tastes so good. And it gives me a little bit of a lift. So let's say I think of coffee. I have coffee late at night. And for one person, this keeps them up all night because they had a coffee late at night, right? And it's a bit of a sensual pleasure because they're liking the taste of it. Sometimes people like the smell of it. And they have an intellect that's guiding that this is probably going to keep me up, but I'm still going to have it, right? So a lot of people will do those outs, and this is taking a conscious awareness of what are we associating with. And if we associate with that higher consciousness, we can really be mindful about what we're choosing to do, right? So that also pulls us away from egoic tendencies. So then the next quotation I wanted to share with you is this beautiful one by Peyton Conway March. And I thought this was really well said, so I had to share it. It says, there is a wonderful mythical law of nature that the three things we crave most in life, happiness, freedom, and peace of mind, are always attained by giving them to someone else. Happiness, freedom, and peace of mind. So happiness, we know that we would love for the people that we love and perhaps just people in our environment to be happier and healthier, right? What can we do? What is it from ourselves that we can do to help someone be happier? Now, if I know that my partner has diabetes, I will make them happier by giving them something that they really like to eat for which doesn't help their diabetes. I mean, that will be a short-term sensual pleasure, right? So that's a short term. But if I really want their long-term happiness, I'm going to make sure that the foods that we have are going to actually help that condition. They'll be tasty, but they won't affect that diabetic reading. So the blood glucose, I would not want it to go up, right? So that's a happiness that I want them to have for long term, not a short term temporary happiness, which is ego centered, right? So in that, and then peace of mind, it's how can I help someone else have a peace of mind if I can say, this is what I really admire about you. This is what I really appreciate about you. This is what I really love about you. That's giving another person peace of mind. But if my mind moves into, how come they're not telling me what they love about me? That's me moving into ego, right? So today I'd love for you to sit for 5 minutes and just think about, are you helping another person outside of your ego, right? So not just you, but someone else feel happiness, freedom, and peace of mind? And then are you giving those same things for yourself, for not a short-term pleasure for the ego, but a long-term awareness of this makes me feel good? I can tell you that satisfactions from the soul level are so much more satisfying, complete, beautiful than short-term pleasures of the ego. I would love for finishing today's video with this quotation that I got by Jillian Michaels, which says, a bad day for your ego is a great day for your soul. And it's so true. And people would think, well, if I'm holding back on eating chocolate, or if I'm holding back on a big meal at Christmas, or if I'm holding back from going on my favorite vacation, or if I'm holding back from ah, caring about another person, it feels really good in the moment because I'm caring about me, right? In all of those times. Yet, really, long term, it doesn't feel so good. And I think we all know this. Today, I'd love for you to think about that. And again, for 5 minutes, just see, what are you doing to encourage happiness, freedom, and peace of mind for someone else? I hope you think about that and have a fantastic day. And I wish you a fabulous day ahead with remembering, transform your mind and transform your life. Have a great day, everyone.